Welcome to the Browns Nation station. I'm your host, Mark Bergen. I am pleased to be welcomed by a man of many hats. He's the morning radio host of Houston Sports Talk 790. Former NFL quarterback Sean Salisbury joins the Browns Nation station. Thanks to the folks at PicksWise. And Sean, I've got to say, of all the craziness in 2020, the Browns entering their bye week at 5-3 might be the craziest of all the things we've seen thus far this year.
I think maybe for Browns fans, Mark, it has. But I've been trying to ride this train for a couple of years since Mayfield got there. I picked them to go to the playoffs this year. Now, the inconsistency of 1 week they play great and hit 23 straight throws or whatever against Cincinnati, and then have trouble mustering up touchdowns against the Raiders in bad weather may drive people crazy. And I think as Cleveland Browns fans that are from the area are probably like, okay, when are we going to go through a losing streak? But when I was playing, one of my favorite places to ever visit because the fans was Cleveland, Municipal Stadium, the old rickety. I loved it. And I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm the historical part of being a football guy that I love Browns fans. And I'm one of those, like when we played the Raiders, I loved the black hole, when the dog pound, even though I threw interceptions in that building, I sure as hell still love the Cleveland fans. But just watching this team this year, I would imagine 2020 has been crazy, but they are in a great position. They just need to start to string together that consistency that goes with the championship team, because they're going to beat good teams. But in the postseason, you've got to run through 3 or 4 of them to get where you're going to go. And they're more than likely going to end up being a wild card. So they'll be on the road.
In your opinion, what would you say is the biggest storyline for the Browns through their first half of the year?
That's one. Inconsistency is one of them. I would probably say, no, there's so many of them. But for me, as a guy who tries to look into it deeper, everybody's going to say, well, and I think it's important. And I said it on a show there in Cleveland too, that I go on every week with Bull and Fox. As you know, I think you know that, Mark, is I think that for Baker's future, just for the comfortability with Stefanski and the rest of it fans, I thought the last 8 games of the season, he really needed to elevate his play, even though he's having a pretty good season. And I'm not an apologist, but I probably take a little heat because I support him, I think, more than some of the national media does, because I know his accuracy against Cincinnati is kind of that's the way I expect him to play. And I hold him, you know what I'm saying? I do. I think the other stuff is not the Baker Mayfield I expected when he came in, and we're starting to see flashes. The guy is a good player, and I believe that. But for me, the storyline is the ability to beat good teams consistently. There's a lot of them. Well, we hear about, Baker and, all this national hot take stuff. Well, do Baker and Odell get along? Or is a new coach going to be fine? Or is Cleveland going to creep back into old school Browns that didn't? All these things. I sift through the forest to get to I can see through the forest to get to, I can. And I as long as there's respect and as long as they can stay healthy, and you look at the talent, their offensive talent especially can match anybody. So the ability to keep teams out of the end zone obviously is part of it. But for me, my own is, Mark, is their ability to beat Pittsburgh, Baltimore, teams that you're quite frankly going to have to beat when you get to January. I hate to tell them this, but this right now, while Cincinnati's getting better, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, those type of teams, they're not going to be around in January. So you got to be good teams. For me, that's the storyline.
So going back to Baker Mayfield, I know he's been the subject topic of sports talk in Cleveland, pundits throughout the NFL. The knee-jerk reaction with a lot of Browns fans was, let's just put in Case Keenum because he won't turn the ball over and what have you. He's on his 6th different team in 9 years. He's 32 years old. He's been a bit of a journeyman in his career. You've got to see what you have in Mayfield as the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 draft and see what you have in him as an asset. That being said, if you're Andrew Berry in this Browns front office, what are the things that you look at in evaluating his play to determine whether to pick up his 5th-year option?
It's a great question. Let me tell you, I was Case Keenum. Does that make sense? A guy who played for different teams, that was relied on as a backup, that started some games. And Case has had, obviously put up better numbers. Don't misunderstand me, but I know that feeling. I root for guys like Case Keenum. But let's stop this absurdity. You invested in the first pick of the draft. You're going to see this through until you find out if you can or can't lead your team where you want to go. And that's not just winning. That's getting to the playoffs and winning bigger. The object isn't just to get and be a 9-7 team and get to the playoffs or just barely miss. Obviously, you want to show improvement. But the Cleveland Browns should want the same things for the Browns that LeBron wanted for the Cavaliers. I mean, that Terry Francona wants for the Indians. And I know it's been a long time, but I don't care that, the Bernie Kosar Browns, they wanted a Super Bowl too. That's how you have to think. And when you draft the number one quarterback and the number one position in the draft, there can't be ifs by his name. And I know people have created ifs, and Baker's created some of those, some inconsistency. It's okay. I'm a fan, but he's not above criticism. Matter of fact, as the first pick of the draft, you're susceptible to more criticism because, well, you're the first pick of the draft. So listen, I was for a long time until you get it. You're always more popular than the starter. It's nuts. Listen, Baker Mayfield's going to start unless he's hurt this year. He's going to start unless he's hurt, or if he's having a horrible game, the last quarter you put somebody in. Mayfield's going to start because I'm seeing it through. I want to see how he reacts to adversity. Not only that, I want to see how he reacts to success. If I'm the front office, the head coach and the front office and the ownership, all of it. Now listen. We're year 4? I mean, for him, Sam, it's time. It's time to take the next step. And the next step is what we expected when he was drafted first. So if I'm them, what I want to see is improvement in my football team. A quarterback's number one job, while it's fine and dandy to throw for 5,000 yards, we all love the numbers. We got a guy in Houston playing out of his mind right now, Deshaun Watson. They're 1-6. So while statistically it may be his best season, it ain't your best season when you're 1-6. So for me, Baker may not having his best year of his career, but he's playing better. I see signs of the accuracy coming back. I see signs of less talk by a franchise and more performance. Now, like I said, the consistency's got to be there, but you don't only learning how to win. It's been a while since they've learned how to win there. And so I think they can. They've got an incredible fan base. So if I'm the front office, I'm evaluating. Now, if he urinates down his leg the rest of the year and I say, I can't move forward with this and I can't pay him $100 million, well, guess what? You pick up the option or you don't, and you go to the next guy. I've always wondered why people have such a hard time with, I know a quarterback can change your franchise, but we draft a defensive end and he works out or doesn't work out 4 years later. Well, we go get another guy. I mean, it's the same as quarterback, and quarterback's the toughest position in the world. So I believe Baker Mayfield's going to be the quarterback here for a while. But if I'm evaluating like any other position, coaching staff, I'm evaluating everything else. Are we getting better? Is he getting better? Does he make players around him better? Does he know how to win under duress? And the end of the thing is when all is said and done, if we're going to pay him and he's our franchise quarterback, is their championships going to be tied to it? Are we going to be in position to win those? If they are, Baker Mayfield stays the quarterback. But quit asking for the backup. If you're a fan, stop it. It ain't happening. You're 5-3 because this is the first pick of the draft. If it doesn't work out, then you'll tee it up and go get somebody else. But right now, he's your quarterback and should be.
Yeah, the sentiment I get from you there, Sean, is that give Mayfield and the Browns a larger sample size in his third year with this fourth different head coach. So there needs to be continuity. There needs to be continuity at the quarterback position, at the head coaching position, and general managing position, which you have not seen with the Browns franchise. And that's the reason why they have the longest active playoff drought in the NFL.
Right. Mark, you make an awesome point, because think about the teams that are successful. Pittsburgh, ownership, front office, coach, quarterback. New England, ownership, front office, coach, quarterback. When the 49ers were winning championships, the Carmen policy in the front office, DeBartolo, the ownership, the head coach, Bill Walsh, and Joe Montana or Steve Young, right? And then when you get to Dallas Cowboys, Jimmy John, the ownership, the continuity. And now think about the Dolphins since Marino and Shula left. Now they're starting to build it again, but they're the same way. 8 million quarterbacks, a whole bunch of head coaches. The Browns are going through it. Once you get the coach, we got to be fair about this. Now, I understand that with a lot of people, we're in a time now we want such instant gratification. If a starting quarterback doesn't play well as a rookie in 4 games, we want to get rid of. They're already ready to run Jimmy Garoppolo out of San Francisco. He was in the Super Bowl last year. Now, he may not have the talent that Pat Mahomes has. He was in the friggin' Super Bowl. You know how many people would stand in line for that? So I'm a little more patient with it, because trust me, I know how to make that position look hard, because I did at times make it look really hard to play. But Baker Mayfield deserves the chance, as does the franchise, to find out, is he a $100 million or $200 million quarterback, and can we go where we want to go with him?
I want to go back to a point you made earlier, Sean, about the rest of the AFC North and the Browns playing the Ravens and the Steelers. Obviously, the Steelers the NFL's last unbeaten NFL team. But what do you think of my premise that the AFC North is now the best division in football, surpassing the NFC West? And you look at the NFC West, okay, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals still on the up and up. 49ers decimated by injuries this year. The Seahawks pass defense is shaky, and specifically their pass defense is very suspect. And the Rams swept the NFC East. So congratulations to the Los Angeles Rams. But what do you think about my premise that the AFC North is now the best division in the NFL?
Well, I went into the season, said the same thing, and there's nothing. This was when people were healthy. I said that it's close. And and see, I didn't judge it by the top heavy teams because I know how good Seattle with Russ Wilson and how good Baltimore is. I judge it by the fourth place team. And while maybe the fourth place team in Cincinnati may not be better, but I guess the point I'm making is Joe Burrow is going to be a star in this league now. And Cincinnati, if they put players around him, we're going to be back to a fun Cleveland, Cincinnati, the fourth place team, like what they're doing in Arizona with the quarterback. Now they're dangerous, and now they're a possible playoff team. Cincinnati may be 2 years away from being Arizona or what San Francisco was 2 years ago and getting into the Super Bowl, but they're starting to build the foundation. And yes, I'm with you but now as we look at it, there's no question because I believe the Bengals on a good day, the Bengals can beat the Rams. Hell, they took care of Tennessee, who's going to make the playoffs and maybe the AFC South's best team. The two top heavy teams, can be playing in February. Cleveland's not there yet, but they're a playoff team and they're sitting in that position. So you're right. And then Cincinnati, I'm going to tell you what, if you come in and you decide to blink, you don't want to play the Bengals with the way Joe Burrow's got them competing right now. You just don't. So I'm with you. And the 49ers injuries, you're talking about 30 plus guys and the quarterback hurt, Kittle hurt. I don't know how they survive, and yet they're still 4-4. But if you're going to have a playoff, you want the NFC West playing the AFC North because that's where those are the dominant divisions, and that's grown-ass man football. So, yeah, I'm with you. And right now, the way they're playing, I would take the AFC North over the NFC West, but it sure as heck be fun to watch. And you're right. There's bigger weaknesses in the West because of injuries. The Seahawks, forget just their pass secondary. They can't rush the passer very well either. Russ, that's why he's an MVP. The 49ers, all the injuries. The Rams, a little bit inconsistent, and they don't have as many bodies as they had when they went to a Super Bowl, but the McVay's great. And the Arizona Cardinals are still on the rise. So I'm with you. I'll take Cincinnati because the fourth place team to me, even though they don't win a lot of games, is showing me unbelievable improvement. They're going to be dangerous in the next couple of years if they invest to help Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Cincinnati's frisky. And if I'm an opposing team playing a team in the AFC North, okay, I've got to go up against the Browns and Myles Garrett, a potential defensive player of the year candidate.
Agreed.
The Steelers' front seven is the best in the NFL. They've had some injuries. We'll see how long some of their guys miss. And then we know what the Ravens can do after going 14-2 a season ago. So, again, I look at it from if I'm an opposing team and an offense and I've got to go up against some of the front sevens in the AFC North, like, good luck.
Hey, Mark, I will tell you this. If you're faint of heart as a fan or a player, you don't want to waltz into a stadium in the AFC North. You just don't because there's two things I can guarantee. One is they're well coached and going to give you all you can handle on both sides of the ball, good players. But if you're a quarterback or an offensive player, you better have a good supply of body bags because when you go home, it's going to take days to recover. I couldn't agree more.
Just a few more questions here with Sean Salisbury, courtesy of the folks at Pickswise here on the Browns Nation station. Sean, you're based in Houston. Who would you like to see become the next head coach of the Texans?
You know, it's easy for us to throw a couple names out there that we hear, right? Josh McDaniels, Robert Saleh, obviously Eric Bieniemy at the top of that list, and I get it. I do. I'm one of those guys all those are great candidates from what the eye test, right? But I'm one of those guys that if I was the GM, I want to sit down and go face-to-face with them because I want to talk with them. I know what their football philosophies are, and there may be a handful of other guys. You know, people have said, well, Lincoln Riley, or people have brought up, other names like that, and there'll be a handful of guys. But first of all, you got to know your plan, and then you got to work your plan. So plan your work and work your plan, meaning the Texans, how you get to that point. The first things first is this will be the most important hire, general manager and coach that they've ever had in the franchise history. Even though it's not a long history, it's a history. And this will be important because of what they just got out of by getting rid of Hopkins and Bill O'Brien, the problems there. And you've got a franchise quarterback in Watson. So this is important that you maximize his ability and build it around him. So I love Bieniemy, but I'm not trying to bag out on the question. I want to look at all the candidates, guys that Josh McDaniels, like I said, names Brian Daboll in Buffalo, Greg Roman in Baltimore. There's good guys everywhere. But I personally, all that's fine and dandy. I want to talk to people that have been on their staff. I want to talk to players that have played for them. But more importantly, I want to sit across the desk from them and say, is your philosophy in line with what I believe, if I'm an owner or the general manager, right? But if we're just looking at it on the surface, I don't know how with all of what he's learned as a player and a coach and as a coordinator and learning behind Andy Reid with his tree, I don't see how Eric Bieniemy doesn't deserve a legitimate full-blown shot at this title. So, yes, he's on the list. I, of course, would interview anybody that's coached Tom Brady and see if Josh, second time around, is better. I would go back to interviewing Todd Bowles again. I know it wasn't successful, but he had an awful team. And he's doing one hell of a job in Tampa coordinating that defense, and they're playing good, and those linebackers are filthy. So, but Bieniemy would probably be the first name on or the last if you were saving the best for last in your mind. But I hope, you know what, like I said, and to you and I, it doesn't have to be a sexy name. And it could be what we call retread, but somebody wasn't successful the first time. I don't have any preconceived notions other than I know Adam Gase would not be my coach. I'll leave it at that because I don't think that he's doing the Jets and and I don't mean it mean. He's a good assistant, but I don't think there's a lot of good coaching going on right now with the Jets. So for me, and he's got a job today, right? Today. And I'll tell you what'll be even more important hire, my man, is not just the head coach, but the coordinators, who his assistants are. Everybody seems to think it's the head coach. I'm going to guess who does most of the work? The coordinators, the position coach that around him, because that's a smart head coach. You hire assistants you think are going to be head coaches. So, and I was being a bit facetious about Adam Gase. Of course, he's a good coach, but right now as a head coach, he struggled in Miami, and he was better as an assistant in Chicago, right? And he's struggling in New York. But for me, Bieniemy would be the top of the list based on what I've seen. But I'm not ruling anybody out. I'd have a short list of about 5 to 7 guys, and I'd interview them all. And I'd put them on the board and I'd ask them questions, how they're going to lead my team. And then I'd want to know what coordinators they were going to hire, because I don't want a coach that hires bad assistants or average assistants. I want a coach who hires guys that he would expect to replace him if he was sick for a weekend. That's who I want.
Gotcha. 2 quick questions, Sean, before we wrap up here. You were hired to train Adam Sandler in The Longest Yard remake in 2005. I was listening to an interview that you did talking about that. Just what's your best memory of actually training the actor and comedian Adam Sandler to play quarterback?
First of all, if you think how you feel about Adam Sandler, and I think that most people feel good about him, great guy, never in the tabloids, funny, loyal, all those things. What you feel about him is exactly what he is and 10 times better. One of the finest people I've ever been around, and he's loyal. He was a blast to work with. He would treat the person that's there as a production assistant the same way he'd treat the top actor that's making $10 million in one of his movies. That's who he is. And when they called me, to make a long story short, I didn't return the call because I thought it was one of my buddies joking when they left me a message, because I got buddies like that, ass clowns that want to do that to you, right? And so then they called again. I called back and I got him on, and they said, well, we'd like you to train Adam Sandler. There's a remake for The Longest Yard, or we're being the Adam Sandler movie, to train the quarterback, Paul Crewe. And I said, who's playing Paul Crewe? And they said, Adam Sandler. And I laughed. I said, he's playing Burt Reynolds. What? I said, you better have a lot of money to pay me to train that guy. And I'd never spent any time with him. And I said, well, why me? And they said, well, he'd seen you on TV and you came regarded and knowing you know how to train quarterbacks. It's not like I applied for any job for that. And so I said, well, that's cool. If he likes me, then I'm in. I'm a big fan of Sandler. And I had to guard against being a fan, as opposed to, we had to do work. I had to get him 4 months ready to play quarterback and to look and to play the part on TV and make those throws, not take the hits. I always kid him. I said, dude, you'd have been too soft to take those hits. You need a real man to do that. But we played basketball every day before we trained, spent months. And what a tremendous human being, family man, still one of my dear friends to this day. And I was fortunate after that to be in bench warmers and house bunny. But the thrill of training him and watching him evolve and make throws and throw on time and put his foot in the ground on a 3-step slant and make the throw and all those things that went with it. And then being around that crew, come on, man, of all the things I've done in my life, how can that not be one of the greatest humbling blessings ever? And Marino still gives me a hard time. He says, and he told Sandler, he goes, well, Salisbury, he can't drop it in the ocean if he's standing on a beach. Why'd you hire him? So Danny and I kid about it, but what a great blessing it is to train him. And I had as much fun, and the memories of the people I met, I'll never forget. I'm grateful for him. And he actually can throw the ball, and he's a pretty damn good athlete. So it was fun.
I'm sure we could talk for days about your experiences in those 3 movies, but Sean, this has been fun. I was going to ask you, we're out of time. I was going to ask you for your Browns Texans prediction in week 10, but what I'll say this is just check your mentions when that game's played.
I'll tell you right now, real quick. The Browns, judging from what I see now in Cleveland, they play the Browns. The Texans can't stop any run game. Watson will put points on the board. I'd pick Cleveland right now because Cleveland's a better football team. And if they run the football and commit to it, it could be a long day for Texas defense. I'd take the Browns today.
Fair enough. Thanks for the folks at PicksWise, and for Sean Salisbury, I'm Mark Bergen. Thank you for listening to the Browns Nation station. Go leave us a 5-star review. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Sean, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it this afternoon.
Reach out to me anytime you need me, brother. Thank you. It's great to be on with you.